Please be seated. Well, my friends, last night this church was not the place of a peaceful, serene, silent night sort of Christmas. It was filled with clueless, mystified, costumed little children doing the very best they could to reenact our Christian story up through when Jesus was born. While Pastor Katie here may have hoped for a flawless, semi-professional production, it was not to be. And all the parents and friends of the kids absolutely loved it. And we should. Because the unintentional chaos of a children's nativity play is truer to the way things actually happened on that first Christmas. After all, if you've ever visited or worked on a farm, you know that animals have their own agenda. And if you've ever been anywhere near a hospital delivery room, you know that there is no meek and mild about the miracle of childbirth, right? The truth is that the birth of Jesus was anything but silent or peaceful or calm. Mary was a teenager made to grow up way too quickly and with no past experience with giving birth. Joseph, it was way in over his head, and the conditions in which Jesus was delivered were certainly less than ideal, even by first century standards. But that's the paradox of Christmas. On the one hand, we desperately want to believe that Jesus' birth was a serene, orderly, peaceful moment in which the whole world stood still. But on the other hand, the gospel stares us in the face and proclaims just the opposite. A couple forced to travel to an unfamiliar town, a teenage girl undoubtedly scared as she was suddenly in labor, alone with no mother to assist or comfort her, surrounded by strangers, animals, and who knows what, a scene of disruption, disorder, and chaos, soon to be followed by a hasty flight across the border to Egypt to protect and assure a future for their new baby. That is what the Gospels describe. Jesus' birth was not an entrance characterized by privilege, comfort, public celebration, or self-glorification. It was marked instead by lowliness, obscurity, humility, and fragility. God did not choose to break into the world with the Chumash Indians in what was at the time the bucolic, peaceful Channel Islands off the coast of California. God and Jesus chose to come to a place in the Roman Empire rife with conflict, injustice, disease, and poverty. A place needing redirection and change in perceptions, priorities, and privileges. A new criteria for how human beings should treat one another and to attend to the common good. First century Christians weren't prepared for what a truly countercultural and radically inclusive figure that Jesus was, and neither are most of us today. We want to tame and domesticate who he was. But Jesus' life and ministry don't really allow for it. He shattered barrier after barrier. Each Christmas, I find myself hoping that by reading and or hearing the remarkable choice God made to reveal himself as a human being will trigger more of us to see and reflect upon the actual Jesus of history in the Bible. That this Christmas, more of us will bypass the incrustations of 2,000 years of religious civilization and return straight to Jesus, the helpless baby who was born on a bed of straw, the wandering troubadour who put the poor, the marginalized, and the ailing at the center of his gaze, the outsider who confronted the unjust structures of his society and took them all on at once. I want to replace and recapture, rather than replace, but recapture the bare bones and immensely charismatic man that we find in the Gospels. As is often the case for me, I find wisdom, solace, and inspiration from poets. Reflecting on Christmas, Pete Ennis writes, "I want to forget the Jesus who behaves, who looks like he would fit right in at church, who acts as expected, colors between the lines, and never wanders off the beach blanket. And remember instead the rebel Jesus, the countercultural, sometimes snarky, sometimes funny, uncompromisingly in your face against hypocritical gatekeepers, uber compassionate toward outsiders, challenger of the status quo, total mensch, Jesus." Finally, I leave you with the provocative Christian poem by William Kurlick, who writes about the incredible fact that lowly, culturally marginalized shepherds, foreigners, and the common people of Bethlehem open their hearts to Jesus and his parents. Kurlick writes, "If it happened here, as it happened there, if it happened now, as it happened then, who would have seen the miracle? Who would have brought gifts? Who would have taken them in?" Friends, this Christmas, may the story and values of Jesus provide you with a new or renewed purpose, a purpose to be a model and light for the common good of all God's children and creation. And finally, as Charles Dickens' Tiny Tim famously said, God bless you, everyone. Amen.